Hello and welcome back to Cellar Notes. I'm your host Matt Getch, and I'm here today with Liam Scott, the Regional Sales Manager for Kilbeggan Distillery out of Ireland. Thanks for coming, Liam.
Yeah, nice to meet you. It's lovely to be here.
So I wanted to tell us a bit about yourself and your position as Regional Sales Manager. What is it you do?
I cover the Midwest for Kilbeggan Irish Whiskey Distillery. I'm based out of Minneapolis, so I'm enjoying this lovely weather. It's absolutely fantastic here.
And Liam, why don't you tell us a little bit about what differentiates Irish whiskey from the other whiskeys that are out there? Like, what's the difference between Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey?
Sure. The biggest difference is how we actually malt the actual barley itself, and that's a main ingredient for Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey. So in Scotland, they actually smoke the actual barley with this stuff here, which is called peat. Or in Ireland, we call it turf. We actually smoke the grain in large warehouses, and we put the grain about 1.5 feet deep in the warehouse. We have these fires all over the warehouse, and then we actually smoke it. In Ireland, what we actually do is we actually heat the actual barley in ovens, or anthracite ovens, fired by coal. So the piece of barley starts to germinate. It looks like a bit like a petal, and once it starts to germinate, it opens up, and all those sugars and starches start to activate, and there's no smoke in it at all. And then we take it off the heat, and then we start a distillation process. So that's the biggest difference, and that brings out the sweetness. The other big ingredient is actually barrels. We buy 99% of our barrels from Kentucky, and these are some of the little staves that I brought along today to show you the difference. So in Kentucky, by American law, they only can use the barrel once, which is fantastic for us, because then we can buy it, ship it over to Ireland, and then we put our clear liquid, or as we call it, poachine, just you would call it in America moonshine. Okay. And we put it in there, which is a clear liquid, and once we then age it. So we age it for a minimum of 3 years. 2 gingers, of course, is aged by 4 years. But if you look at the actual barrel itself, the inside of it is charred, it's burnt, and which is from our partners at Jim Beam, actually burning the inside of the barrel for bourbon. And we pick up a little bit of the color in our whiskey. But over the years, the bourbon actually soaks into the actual barrel. Then when we put our whiskey in there, we actually pick up a little bit of that flavor. So with every bit of, every bottle of Irish whiskey, there's a little bit of bourbon in there too.
All right.
Okay.
And imparts the flavor and the color? Absolutely,
absolutely. And that's why our whiskey, you actually see it in the bottle. We actually have a clear bottle, and you actually see what you actually are going to buy.
And when the spirit goes into those used oak barrels that come over from the States, it's a dead clear liquid, isn't it?
It is, and it's a clear liquid. It's a double distilled whiskey, and it goes straight into the barrel, and then it is aged for a minimum of 4 years. And then we take it out and we bottle it, and it's a very, very simple process.
All right, outstanding. Is there a lot of rules and regulations? I know, like bourbon whiskey has got to be a certain percent corn in the mash, and it's got to be aged for a certain period of time. A lot of those kind of regulations in Irish whiskey?
Yeah, Irish whiskey has to be a minimum of 3 years old, and it has to be at least distilled twice. So that is by Irish law. And it still holds today as it has done for over 1855. So it's been a long time, and we've held by it.
And let's go back in history a little bit. Let's talk about the Kilbeggan Distillery a little bit, and the history behind that.
Well, our distillery is the oldest distillery in Ireland. We started making whiskey back in 1757, and we've been in continuous production since then. We actually closed for a couple of years during the 1980s. At the height of the Depression in Ireland, but the previous owners just reopened after the 80s, and we've been in continuous production since then, and bringing an array of fantastic whiskies to the general public.
Has it always been called Kilbeggan?
No, it was actually called Locke's Distillery at one time, and then it became the Kilbeggan Distillery, and then it became Cooley, and now it's back to Kilbeggan. Okay. We're now owned by the Jim Beam Company, so we're the only Irish distillery that's owned by an American company, so it's kind of nice.
And there aren't a whole lot of distilleries in Ireland anymore, are there?
Yeah, there's only 3. At one time, there was up to 200 distilleries in Ireland, and really today, there's 3 working distilleries, and we have the oldest distillery.
What do you suppose the reason is behind that? How come it went from like 200 and some to 3?
Prohibition. This was our biggest market. Our avenue of trade was cut off because of prohibition, and we also became a republic in 1923, which cut off all the previous trade routes that the British had for Irish whiskey, because they ruled us up until 1923, and we couldn't sell into their trade routes, and that was cut off, and basically the industry spiraled until the 1980s, until it started to come around. And a little bit of trivia for you, in the early 1980s, there was more Irish whiskey actually exported in Bailey's Irish Cream than there was in a single bottle. So it just shows you where we come from then into where we are today. So it's very nice. And there's only about 17 brands, actually labels, that are available in Ireland.
Yeah, you notice that when you walk into a liquor store, the Irish whiskey isn't nearly as, the section isn't nearly as big as like the Scotch whiskies and the bourbon whiskeys.
Sure. Because they had been still making whiskey from the 1855s onwards, and you know, there's over 500 single malt whiskey distilleries in Scotland.
Sure.
And there will be more and more in Ireland. I mean, it's starting to really come around, and the micro distillery is coming back too in Ireland. There's a new one opening up in Belfast. There's one up in Derry, and there's one in County Cork. So they're coming around, and it's great to see. It's fantastic to see our industry coming back.
Yeah, that's great to hear, especially because I love Irish whiskey. And getting a little more variety out there is always good.
Thank you.
And the reason I went back to the name of the distillery was because I remember it being the Cooley Distillery.
Sure.
When I was talking with an acquaintance of mine who happened to start the Two Gingers Distillery.
Sure.
He started getting his whiskey distilled out there. You want to tell us a little bit about the Two Gingers whiskey and the history behind that? I know they got a great story.
Well, the history of Two Gingers, myself and Kieran Folliard, who everybody knows from the local, the Cooper, the Liffey, and Kieran's in Minneapolis. He started the whiskey the brand Two Gingers up 4 years ago for his bars, and then 3 years ago he decided he was going to sell his shares in the bar, and then start his journey with Two Gingers. Then of course he drags me along, and but we launched the brand. Our first year we sold nearly 20,000 cases in Minnesota. To nearly
just in Minnesota.
Just in Minnesota, 2,000 bars, restaurants, and liquor stores. And then just last year, we sold 23,000 cases to 3,000 accounts, both on and off premise in Minnesota, and it's growing double digit every year. And I think people are really getting to know the brand and to feel comfortable with the brand and with our signature cocktail, the Big Ginger. Everybody loves, which is a very easy cocktail to make. It's 2 parts, 2 gingers, Irish whiskey, ginger ale, fresh lemon and lime, and it's super cocktail to make coming up to St. Patrick's Day, and any day rather.
Yeah, I was blown away by that. Usually I'm not I like to, sip my Irish whiskey.
Sure.
I've never been a big ginger ale fan,
Sure.
but yeah, you put the two together, and the lemon and lime wedge actually combine the cocktail quite well.
It really does. The citrus really brings out the flavor of the whiskey, and it's not just for men. It's for women also. It's a very versatile cocktail, and it's bringing new drinkers into the category who have never had whiskey before, and it's great to see, because the resurgence not only in Irish whiskey but also in American whiskey is fantastic. I think we're growing together.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm glad they got that out there to show the versatility of the spirit and how it can mix into a number of different cocktails. Can you tell me who these two women are on the front of the bottle?
Well, the two women are Delia and Mary. They are Kieran's mother and his aunt, and like any Irish mother, they rule the house. My mother ruled our house. There was 9 of us in our family, and my mother ruled the house and ruled all us. But Mary and Delia is Kieran's mother and his aunt, and they were very much side of who he is today, the entrepreneurial spirit of what he's developed with Two Gingers and his time in the pubs and other ventures that he's getting into in the future. So it's very much 2 sides of the same coin. the person who he is today. They were partially, of course, his father as well, building the character of the man he is today.
And boy, did they ever do a great job. And everybody who's ever met Kieran loves the guy.
He's a great man. I've known Kieran for nearly 20 years now, so.
He's got more friends than anybody I know.
Oh yeah, yeah, and a few enemies as well. We're Irish, we also have a few enemies.
So you want to tell us a little bit about the other whiskeys that are coming out of the distillery here?
We have the Two Gingers, which is a 4-year-old Irish whiskey. It's distilled twice, and it's aged in used bourbon barrels from Kentucky. And then it's also finished in sherry barrels from Jerez in Spain. Then part of the rest of the breadth of the portfolio is just to show you part of our stable of brands. We have Kilbeggan, which again is named after the village where our distillery is in County Westmeath, and it's a 4-year-old Irish whiskey. Then we have Green Ore, which is a 100% corn, 8-year-old small batch Irish whiskey, and then Tyrconnell. Tyrconnell was one of the top 10 selling Irish whiskies prior to Prohibition here in America, and we even had billboards in Yankee Stadium, so the brand itself had been around in America, and the distillery closed in 1937, and the previous owners of Kilbeggan bought the name, bought the rights to the brand. And this one here is a Madeira cask, and it's previously been used for aging Madeira wine from the island of Madeira off the coast of Portugal. So this is to really show where Two Gingers has come from, where it's going, and also where Irish whiskey is going. And it's the fastest growing category right now in the US. And actually Two Gingers, a little bit of trivia for you, is the fastest growing Irish whiskey in America. And we are now available in 50 states. The brand is now a national brand. So we're very, very excited about that. Kieran's out there spreading the word around the country, telling a few stories on the way, and we're really getting the brand out there.
He's a great storyteller too, that guy.
Yeah, he is indeed.
So it went from just being a Minnesota brand, it didn't like branch out to the Midwest and then the East Coast and the West, just went national, just like that.
It basically, last year we tested the greater Midwest area, and then we went national this year.
And that was partly due to the partnership with Beam Global, is that right?
Absolutely. It was. They have been absolutely fantastic at taking this brand to their heart and really embellishing what we are at Two Gingers, and then spreading the word to the rest of the country. Because, you know, if you look at what Beam has done this past 15 to 20 years in the small batch arena, they've really been able to sell handcrafted spirits, and to get into the Irish whiskey category with Kilbeggan, I think it's been a great marriage for us. Thank you.
And I think that's pretty much all I got for you today, Liam. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you. But before we leave, I'd like to have a little toast prior to St. Patrick's. The big holiday for us Irish is coming up on the 17th of March, and I'd like a little toast.
Oh, please, let's do.
To you. And this is called a ship toast. And there's big ships, there's small ships, there's wee ships, and there's long ships. But the best ship of all is a friendship that's toasted over a glass of Two Gingers Irish whiskey. Sláinte. In the Irish, it means to your health.
Ah, sláinte to you as well.